Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Bill and Ted's excellent Game Boy adventure, for the Nintendo Game Boy of course, brought to us by LJN and Beam Software. This is another one of the handful of Bill and Ted games that were created over the length of the film franchise being released. This game being released right after the Bogus Journey, the second Bill and Ted movie, was released. The game features just a single-player game where you play as Bill and Ted as they alternate between each of the worlds while you're collecting time fragments in order to fix history. You travel to all different time periods, must collect every time fragment in a level before you're able to move on to the next stage. Here we go with Bill and Ted's excellent Game Boy adventure for the Nintendo Game Boy. While you can play the game two players, it's just alternating back and forth between the two characters. It's not any simultaneous gameplay here. You start off by playing as Bill, and you start off in the first level here. Now, as you can see, the levels are all single screen, and your goal here is to collect all the flashing objects, and they change depending upon what part of time you are currently located in. There's all different various types of enemies, a lot of which represent, of course, the different time periods. For example, here, we have Abraham Lincolns walking all around. If you end up dying from being touched by any enemy, as you only have 1 health, you must restart the level. Each of the worlds is broken up into 5 individual levels or quests. Once you complete them, you move on to the next time period. The game is very reminiscent of Beam Software's other amazing game, Back to the Future 2 and 3, where you had to actually complete very similar rooms to this in order to collect all the different items that were locked in the different parts of history. While they start off rather easy, more enemies are introduced as of course we move on. For example, we have Albert Einstein with his over-enlarged head. He's a little bit harder to jump over than the Abraham Lincolns, but also we have the threat of Napoleon walking around, as he has his very oversized large hat that he likes to throw at you like a boomerang, and then it's retracted back to him. Of course, you'll want to have to jump over that twice when you're trying to get past Napoleon in order to not get hit by it. Besides just enemies, there's also, of course, large amount of the ground that will not exist at all in different levels, giant pits that you can lose a life in. You have conveyor belts, as we've seen so far, as well as you have patches of dirt that slowly start to fall apart the longer you stand on them. You have to time it correctly so you can quickly get off of these platforms before they completely disintegrate. And in each of the levels, sometimes you may have to jump on the same spot multiple times, so you'll have to be really quick on a few of the dirt patches. Here we have level number 5 of the first adventure of First World. We're introduced also to another new character, this time Joan of Arc. You can tell she's female. She seems to be very well endowed in the chest area, as well as she likes to swing a sword in your direction. She's also pretty easy to jump over, but she also is one of the characters and one of the many enemies that once you land near them, even if they're facing the other direction, they will do a quick turnaround and start heading towards you. Once we're able to complete the level, Bill then passes the torch over to Ted to tell him to go ahead for the next set of levels as we move on to New Mexico 1879 for the next set of 5 levels. And you can tell that Bill and Ted do look slightly different in the sprite area. We're also introduced to new enemies once again. In this level, we're introduced to the Billy the Kid enemy, who fires 2 bullets in 2 directions, and then actually will start moving along the platform. Usually I can get him to fire, and then after he fires, then quickly get to the platform he's on before trying to get over him. The tumbleweed enemy that you also saw moves really slowly, every so often jumping, so you can either run underneath of him or just jump over him to get past. In the next level, we have both an Abraham Lincoln and an Albert Einstein. Since one moves faster than the other, you'll have to time your jumps accordingly. We're also introduced to the weird door enemy. These trapdoors are going to be in abundance throughout the rest of the game. They move really slowly like a worm crawling across a different ceiling area, and every so often a hand will pop out and try to grab you. These hands have a pretty good hit distance, and they are one of the most annoying enemies to get past, so if you see one, always be cautious when trying to go underneath of them. In the next level, we have another new enemy. I'm not sure exactly who this one is supposed to represent, I apologize for that, but they move just a little bit faster, I think, than the Abraham Lincolns. Pretty much the same exact ordeal, so you can easily get past them. We're also introduced to the concept of being able to pick up certain flashing objects, and that will get rid of certain platforms or walls in that particular level. While at first it seems pretty easy and pretty straightforward, however, as we advance, figuring out which items to grab first is going to be essential in order to actually complete some of these harder puzzle-filled stages, and actually is one of the few enjoyable puzzle aspects of this game. This level has the sliding poles. Anytime you see these, you won't really be able to jump over them unless you're really high up, and if you make contact with them, you immediately start rolling down the entire pole. Starts off pretty easy, but of course a few of these will be over pits that you won't be able to actually land safely after, so you'll have to be careful of them. The next level, rather easy, jump up a few platforms, watch out for the Billy the Kid on the main platform, and you should have no issue with this one. Next up, we move on to the third world, which is Greece, 1410 BC. Here we're introduced to Socrates, another figure of history, and of course associated with Greece. These big, large enemies, when you run into them, will just keep bumping you around. They won't kill you, but they bump you off of wherever you are, so they can be quite annoying. Here we have to go into the lower right corner to grab the balloon item and make our way up. As you see, when you grab the flashing items, it disappears the platform that the Socrates and Lincoln are standing on. Had you gone up normally and tried to just grab them, you would have ended up falling down, so you need to use the balloon item in that level in order to get up. You'll press the B button in order to pick up boxes, and once you pick up a box in the game, you press B again in order to use it. There's a few different items located in these boxes. Besides the balloons, you've seen the ones with the skulls that sometimes give you extra lives. You have to time it correctly, because sometimes you'll get an extra life, and sometimes you'll actually just die straight up there, so there's always a risk and reward with that one. But besides the balloons, you also have the bombs that you can get, the clocks, and then you have another item that ends up allowing you to speed up for a period of time. This level, your biggest threat, of course, as you can see, is the torches set up on the main platform. Here we end up grabbing the RIP, the tombstone, and when you use that, you're invincible for a period of time. This will greatly help you run through enemies and get past certain areas, allowing you to easily pick up the rest of the items we need in this stage and move on to level 4 of Greece. Be careful at the beginning of this level if you go for the upper left corner, because the Socrates and torches, not timing the jumps correctly here, Socrates will end up knocking you backwards into one of those torches. We also get the bomb item for the first time. You use these bomb items, not only can you destroy some of the enemies, but you also use them to actually destroy floors. They can destroy any of the normal platforms, causing a hole to form in them, allowing you to get past. While we don't really need one in this level, we will definitely need them and learn where they have to exactly go in order to complete puzzles in later stages. Next up is Greece level 5. Here we have another one of those 1-up boxes you can grab, and a bunch of trapdoor enemies. Time your jumps correctly here and run underneath the trapdoors only when you have an opening, so you can grab the hourglasses and safely traverse this stage. Thankfully, this Lincoln enemy can't come all the way over to the left due to the gap with the chain, so you use that to your advantage to get him to go backwards before trying to attempt to go past that trapdoor. Drop down here safely and past the Lincolns, watching out for one more trapdoor, and grab the last hourglass and complete the Greece world. The next set of levels is England in 1456. Here we're introduced to a knight enemy. These guys are rather annoying, they're an instant kill, and what you have to do in this level is time your jumps correctly to grab the right flashing items. Once you've gotten to this point, grab the ones on the right side first, then grab 2 of the 3 on the left side. This will cause the platform the knight is on to disappear, allowing him to fall down. You have to make him fall all the way down to the bottom platform, not the small platform. Then climb all the way back up the chain on the left and grab the last 2 flashing items, make a very large leap off the right chain so you can actually land in the doorway and go to the next level. That is one of the toughest stages and easily the toughest stage we have done thus far in the game. When you start up the next level, do a big jump over the sliding pole to the elevator in the center of the level and go over to the right side, dropping down past the Lincolns, as well as the Executioner enemy that we're introduced to as well in the bottom right corner. These guys are pretty deadly, of course, with their giant swinging axe, but overall you should be able to jump over them. Then ride the elevator back up and grab the last 2 items, because once you do so, you'll instantly land in the door, but if you did so earlier in the level, you would have just fallen right down the pit. The next level starts off easily as you end up getting the bomb in the upper right corner. With the bomb in your hand, use it to explode the platform just above this vine here. Drop down and collect the next 2 items. Then move through the rest of the dirt platforms you have in order to fall down to the center platform, and then quickly go up again to get over to the right side. You should be able to land and grab the flashing item on the left side of the wall, then drop down and grab the one on the right, and then do some quick platforming back up to the upper left corner in order to grab the door. This is another tough level and the toughest level in the game as far as manipulating the dirt piles. There is a few different ways to complete that stage, I am sure. That's just the way I ended up completing it in this particular run. Next up, we actually get the item that speeds us up for the first time. Be very careful when you use it because you move really quickly when you have it in your possession, especially on conveyor belts. But thankfully we're able to easily use it, get past the swinging guillotine that's available there, as well as the executioner in the lower right corner, and get all the items and get to the door. Next up we have a dog enemy that's introduced to us for the first time. These dogs can be a little bit annoying as they like to jump when they reach certain edges of platforms, and they can jump up to higher platforms, especially in later levels. We also get the sleeping item here. These can help you out a little bit, freezing and making the enemies go a lot slower. You can also get a clock item here, which of course increases the amount of time you have left. Be very careful and make a large leap over the soldier here so you don't end up running into him as he quickly moves back and forth. Grab the last flashing item and then jump up to the door that's just above the knight in order to complete it. We now move on to the 5th world of the game as we switch back over the bill as we move on to 1 million BC. This dinosaur themed stage, as you can tell easily from the background, has us collecting more flashing items and also introduced to a flying manta ray like enemy. These guys are quite annoying, but learning their pattern as far as being able to maneuver around them, how slow they move, you should be able to work your way up to the top here in order to grab all the flashing items. Thankfully there's a lot of platforms and a lot of space to manipulate the guys so you can actually get around them. In the next level, we're introduced to the Cavemen, another one of the more annoying enemies in the game because they throw giant rocks at you constantly. Start making your way up and just collect the flashing items by level here, and you should be able to get the rest of the flashing items to appear once doing so, as well as be able to avoid any of the gaps that may form. The key here, though, of course, is dodging all those flying rocks. Get used to it in this level because there's going to be a couple of levels where you have to get past them in smaller, tighter areas. The next level is rather difficult the first time you get here. Pick up the first bomb and drop it on the far right side. Grab the next bomb and then drop down the hole you created. What you'll want to do is drop the bomb on the right side here and grab the bottom right flashing item. This will actually get rid of the wall right next to you. Watch out for the rocks and then collect the next 2 flashing items, getting rid of the next wall. You collect 2 more and then grab a balloon item so you can make it up to the final flashing item and get the door to appear. The next level has some really tricky jumping, and you'll have to time your jumps so you can get past each of the walls before they disappear as you collect all the flashing items. Not too difficult, but it definitely will test your platforming ability in the Bill and Ted game. Next up, we have a lot of flashing items here. We also get a clock at the top, and we're being chased by the manta ray enemy. Make your way through avoiding the manta ray the best you possibly can as you're collecting all the different items here. Thankfully, you can slow him up a little bit in certain areas, but your main goal is just to keep avoiding him and collect all the items. It doesn't really matter any particular order, as long as you avoid running into him and of course running into the pits. Our next level is the modern day shopping mall. You grab the first few items and everything disappears. However, it's actually still there, it's just invisible. So you'll have to memorize where everything actually was, avoiding the moving shopping cart at the bottom of the screen, as it will like to move back and forth consistently. Anytime that it gets near you, it'll just keep going back and forth right below you, and if you land on the platform, it of course will try to run into you, so be careful of that as you maneuver around and collect all the flashing items. This level's a little bit tricky because everything's invisible, but thankfully you really don't have too much trouble as far as falling down the pit, as long as you don't make too high of a jump on the top part of the screen. Next up, we have another new enemy introduced here. These enemies will be swinging bats at you, it looks like. They move pretty much the same way as the Joan of Arc character, so just be careful of them. Watch out for the shopping cart above as you make your way down and collect these items. Be sure to drop down in the right pattern so you can actually collect all the flashing items on the right side, so you land into the phone box before you end up hitting the pit below. The next level has more of the cats or dogs, I think. I'm not sure. Either way, they move back and forth, jumping between the center platform and the top ones at first, and then eventually making their way down to the bottom ones. Once they do so, you'll be able to collect the ones all on the top, and then as they make their way back up to the top platforms, drop down to collect the last few flashing items and get to the phone booth. Here we have an Abraham Lincoln enemy, as well as some more of their shopping carts as they move back and forth here. Collect the flashing items as you're making your way up here. There really isn't a particular order, and if you're lucky, you can actually get the shopping carts to kind of meet in the middle, and they'll get stuck for a while right around the vine, and this will greatly help you out as far as being able to actually avoid it. Get to the top, avoid the last few enemies. Here, sometimes if the enemies get stuck on the top part, you'll have to wait for them to pull apart before you're actually able to get up there and collect the last couple items. The next level is definitely a bit tricky. Start off by climbing up the chain, grabbing the clock, and grabbing the first flashing item. Grab the second one on the left, but quickly jump off the platform and make it over to the right, as you have a small platform that appeared after you grabbed the first item. Work your way up, collecting the items in the same pattern that I do, so that you're able to get them all and still be able to complete the stage without falling down into the pit. And of course, the Lincoln enemy is a little bit easy to deal with, but you still have to worry. Next up, we're in the school. So now we're in schoolroom level 1. We have more of the Joan of Arc characters here. Fall down the area here and collect all the flashing items as the platforms disappear as soon as you land on them. Collect this one and drop down in between the Joan of Arc characters to grab the next one below. You'll get the Joan of Arcs to move all the way over to the left side of the screen, giving you an opportunity to drop down and collect some items. Thankfully, when they attack, they slow up, and if you manipulate it correctly, you can get both Joan of Arc characters together on one kind of square. Then get past them, back up the vine, and collect the last couple items you need before you're going to the door. Next up, in the next level, you start off on the very bottom here and you'll have to wait for the elevator to work its way up. We have another new enemy that's introduced here. The Robotic Bill enemies are some of the more annoying enemies in the game because when they see you, they immediately run towards you and try to pick you up. They can't kill you, but what they like to do is pick you up and drop you off different edges. So you'll have to manipulate them correctly so you can grab the flashing items while avoid getting thrown off into pits below. The first level you have a little bit of an opening because you have platforms below you, but you still have to be very careful. Next up, climb up the chain to begin the next level. Don't grab the one on the right, instead climb up the left side and grab the two up there, then jump across the platforms to the upper right corner and grab the one right next to the Lincoln. If you do it correctly, you'll be able to get past the wall as it forms and over to the right side, grabbing the next set of items. Here, wait for Lincoln to go backwards, then jump down to the bottom platform and grab the flashing item before the wall appears, then grab the last one and you'll immediately fall down into the door below. Next up, we have another new enemy to deal with. Watch out for another one of those robotic bills and grab the first few items below before climbing up to the platform with the robot here. The guy we're introduced here is the main villain of the second Bill and Ted movie. The thankful thing is, though, that Chuck cannot actually make us die here. He just teleports us across the different areas with the fireballs he fires out. That's the good news about it. But it can get quite annoying when he teleports you away from the platforms that you want to be on and trying to actually collect all those flashing objects. Next up, we have a level filled with the robots, as well as our good friend Chuck at the top platform. Collect all the flashing objects on the bottom platform before heading up. Then jump on the left and right sides, easily collecting the next two before heading up to the top level. Just be careful on the top level itself because of the fireballs that will get fired out. You may end up getting teleported, or you may get grabbed by the robot and dropped off either the left or right side. Thankfully, there's enough gap though between the top and bottom that you can safely land on the platform, even if the robot throws you off. Next up is adventure number 8, and this is the Abyss. As you start up this level, drop down the left side collecting all the flashing objects. We're introduced to the evil Easter Bunny in this level who will throw eggs at us that roll around the ground, eventually rolling off any platform that he's currently standing on. Grab the balloon in the lower right corner and then get up to the very top, collecting the last few flashing objects while avoiding the Easter Bunny's evil eggs. In the next level, you'll also introduce to the Granny here. Granny moves rather slowly, but she can fire kisses at you that will destroy you, as well as you also have the Colonel to deal with as well, another one of Bill and Ted's evil enemies here, as he likes to throw out bombs at you, and you'll have to avoid those bombs while collecting the flashing objects. In the next level, drop down all the way down to the bottom corner. Here, collect all the flashing objects, but ignore all the ones on the left side. Watch out for the Easter Bunny's eggs atop, and then grab the gravestone and use that when you need to in order to collect all the flashing objects here. Usually I like to use it when I get near the top to avoid the Easter Bunny. Then, when you have that, climb all the way over to the left side and just collect all the flashing objects to complete the stage. Next up is a level that you can see is pretty easy at start, as you just grab the items and it destroys whatever next wall that you need to destroy. The problem is you have the Colonel here you'll have to jump over while avoiding the bombs he throws out. Watch out even if he's above you, because of course with the opening he can still fire down below you. Grab the last two items and avoid the trapdoor in the lower right corner to go through the door. The only real trouble with the next level is it's kind of a Donkey Kong-esque thing here with the eggs rolling down at you. Make your way all the way to the top, easily grabbing the flashing object past the Easter Bunny. You just have to be careful on the platforming jumps you make at the very bottom here. Once you've grabbed all the ones at the bottom, the top ends up opening up where the Easter Bunny was to the right. So you have to climb back up and jump over Lincoln here, watch out for the guy below, and grab the last couple of flashing objects. Not too difficult as long as you take your time and are at least okay with the jumping in this game, even though it's not the greatest. Welcome to Paradise, Level and Adventure 9. Here we are introduced to two new enemies, the Angel and Death. Both of which are deadly to us, as much as that makes sense. You'll have to watch out for Death, as he likes to teleport around the level to different areas. Of course, running into is an instant death. And you have the Angel that takes up a ridiculous amount of space overall, especially in smaller areas or smaller screens. You'll have to collect the objects also, of course, in the right order here in order to get all the platforms to appear, so you can actually land there safely, grab the items, and of course work towards the door. The next level a little bit tougher, as you have a center area you're going to start off with. Grab the two items and the platform below will disappear. Jump over to the left side, watching out for Death, and grab the two flashing items over there. You can also grab the one just slightly above if you time your jumps correctly. Try to do your best to avoid the Angel because they move really quickly, then jump up these platforms back and forth left and right in order to get to the top. You'll end up grabbing a clock at the top if you really need it, but get to the dirt on the left side and drop down. Once you've done so, you'll see that two more flashing items appeared in the middle. Be very careful and move around the Angel, and just barely, as you can see here, we're able to get past the Angel and get inside of the phone booth. At the beginning of the next level, jump over, you end up grabbing a balloon. You'll use the balloon in order to, of course, fly up to the platform just slightly above. Problem is, you'll have to avoid the Angel while doing so manipulate the Angel the best you can in order to get to go where you need to. Then drop down the center and grab all the flashing items. Two more will appear at the top. Climb up the left side through the dirt and platforms and grab the last two flashing items. Once you have them all in your possession, you can see, unfortunately, the phone booth is on the far right side. You'll have to maneuver around the Angel once again. Thankfully, Death will eventually teleport, so he'll get out of the way, and we can eventually make it to that door. Here we have an Albert Einstein enemy here in Paradise. We also thankfully have a tombstone in the middle. This level is the easiest of the Paradise levels, because even though you have the two Deaths teleporting, you get an invincibility item to help you out, there's no Angel to avoid, and you can easily get around all the platforms. The final level of Paradise can be a little bit trickier. Thankfully no Angel here, but you have a Death and an Abraham Lincoln on the top. Grab the first two items and then drop down the right side. Quickly, when you jump over to the right, hit the left button so you land on the solid rocks. You'll then be able to jump up to the top area. Hopefully Lincoln got himself stuck on one of the far end platforms here so that we're able to jump over him or avoid him altogether. Here we have Death on the platform below as we're able to jump over him to the far right side to get down. Watching out for the dog enemy here, we can climb up this chain and with a nicely timed jump, still jump over Death in order to eventually reach the door. The key for that level is just getting the enemies to appear or land where you want them to. Finally, we move on to the 10th adventure of the game. This is the culmination of the entire game, the final level, as it is the Auditorium and the actual band concert. Be very careful at the beginning of the level because you'll have to wait for the elevator to come down, but Billy the Kid is going to be there firing bullets at you. Jump over the bullets when you can to get up to the top. You'll avoid two of the robots before you end up dropping down below. There's a couple of torches here, but it's overall pretty easy to jump over them and grab the flashing items until at least you make it down to the same level where Billy the Kid is located. Just be careful and just wait for the right opportunities to jump over his bullets, and then grab the last couple items to get to the door. Next up, in the next level, we have Chuck trying to fire at us, teleporting us, which necessarily isn't a bad thing sometimes in this level. We have two of the robot enemies, as well as you have Napoleon on the very bottom. He's probably the most annoying. We haven't dealt with Napoleon for a while, just be very careful to watch out for that boomerang hat. Here I'm able to land on the platform, jump over our mortal enemy here, and even though he ends up hitting me with a fireball, he teleports me exactly where I will need to go to collect the items on the left side. Then I'll take to the top platform and drop down the right side in order to land into the phone booth. In the next level, we have an angel, 2 deaths, and Billy the Kid. Start off by jumping and collecting all the glowing objects on the top areas. Here, we're able to use the right platform as death disappears in order to climb up and grab the item just on the platform we didn't land on, and then grab the last couple to drop down. There's a lot of enemies there, but thankfully not a whole lot of maneuvering we have to do. In level 4, we have a Napoleon on the right side, a death, and 2 of the robots. Death will eventually teleport, usually before we're able to even get over there, so be careful of him and collect all the flashing objects. The one in the upper left corner will open up the door just in the center. Use the bomb item you immediately pick up and drop it where it was, so you can drop down here and collect all these glowing objects. Just be careful of Napoleon that he doesn't throw his hat through that center column and end up hitting you that way. Collect the last 2 on the top here and you'll see that one appears on the center area again. Work your way down to the bottom instead, grab the balloon item and watch out for Napoleon. With the balloon item in your possession, fly all the way up using the right wall to get back up to the top area. Watch out for this robot and keep landing on this platform as much as possible to eventually jump over the robot and get to that center area to grab the last flashing object and get to the door just before the time ends up running out for the level. We now move on to the 5th and final stage of the game here. We start off with some flashing objects in the top. We have an angel, Death, Chuck, and Billy the Kid. As you can see, when you make it to the bottom, there is a ton of glowing objects. Wait for the angel to come down so you can jump over it, and it'll give you a couple of seconds to avoid it, so you can collect all the other glowing objects and then get to the vine on the left side of the wall. Once you climb up here, work your way over to where Death is located, jumping over him to grab the object here. You have only one more glowing object to grab, but you'll have to avoid Chuck while doing so, which can be a little bit annoying because you don't want to get teleported, as well as the angel will also be in the way. Sometimes it takes a couple of tries here though to get Chuck where you kind of want him so you can jump over him and grab the object. Then quickly drop down one more time and climb up the vine to get to the phone booth just in the nick of time, and you can sit back and enjoy the ending. So there you have it, a little bit of dialogue for the ending. We then have a game over screen and it goes back to the title screen. You can start the game all over again. But anyway guys, it's going to wrap up this edition of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching and of course, I hope you enjoyed.